What's up, challengers? Zach here. We got a GLC deck profile for you guys. This GLC deck profile is for the metal deck Arch Nemesis, a deck name popularized by Tricky Jim, and I thought it was a very cool name, so I like to continue using it because it features the boss monster, Arch. Now, Arch attack is the coded attack, which kind of the theme of this deck is to make it so it's hard for your opponents to kill you with your effects. So like the Arch has coded attack, which when he uses attack during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. And then I also have this Metagross in the deck, which says if the defending Pokemon is an evolution Pokemon, it can't attack during your opponent's next turn. So kind of like preventing attacks from going off. And another card that also the deck also does is Cobalion with Quick Guard, preventing all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. But the idea being that a well-timed Archaludon can totally stop your opponent's progress. Popular decks like Psychic might not have many evolution attackers, but besides like I forget this guy's name, Gallade, every time. So like a Gallade might be their only evolution attacker in a Psychic deck. So you'd be able to stop flat the Iron Boulder decks from running away from you. But to go through the whole deck, we have the Archaludon, coded attack. We have the Duraludon with Metal Sharpener. I just like this Metal Sharpener attack for 30. It's got it's a 130 basic, but being able to kind of act as like an energy acceleration if he's your starter. We have the Metagross in the deck. We're playing the Metal Maker Metang. This I didn't like this before in Metal until we got the Dialga as an attacker, but we can go over Dialga later. But we're playing the Metal Maker, which looks at the top 4 cards of your deck for metal energies. Attach them to your Pokemon any way you like, and then put the rest on the bottom. Requires you to probably play 10 or more metal energies in your deck, but you don't actually have to play that much more now because of Dialga. We play the Cult Family Beldum. There's a new Beldum that comes out in Chaos Rising, which are the pre-releases are happening now for this. And it's a 70 HP with 1 retreat, but this is Cult for Family, so I'll have to think about whether or not it's the new optimal Beldum. For a very good, these are kind of your mechanics, or this is probably more engine than mechanics, but the support Pokemon that we have, we start with Reverum. He's your draw engine. With playing so many metal energies in the deck, Rumbling Engine is you may discard an energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand, so it's a very powerful draw engine. Then you play a 70 HP Varoom, not much to go into it with 1 retreat. Something that's a little bit different from the traditional Arch Nemesis, or I guess the Arch Nemesis versions I've seen, is I like to play the Galarian, Meowth, and Berserker. So this is a card that's common for the metal decks that I tend to do, and it's because of the ability Steely Spirit, making my metal Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage, so it makes the coded attacks hit for 140, which also happens to be Iron Boulder numbers. Even though it doesn't really matter that you one-shot the Iron Boulder, it's still nice to be able to make sure that you're clearing bigger numbers with your Pokemon. The other thing that's kind of nice about this synergy too with the Galarian Berserker and the Meowth is the evolutionary roar on Meowth. You can discard 2 cards from your hand to search your deck for the Galarian Berserker to put it in your hand. So that means you can thin down cards from your hand that you might not be able to play right away to try and draw into the cards that you want to right away. So discarding dead cards to discard an energy to draw a little bit more with a Rumbling Engine. Bronzong, the Metal Lynx guy. You're playing him in almost every version of Metal, I feel like. He's your Malamar equivalent, where you get to once per turn you can attach a Metal Energy from your discard to one of your benched Pokemon. Very good. Then for your basic attackers, we have Iron Crown. He probably gets played in most versions of Metal because he's a 2 energy attacker for Metal for 120 if your opponent has 3 or more benched Pokemon. At least with Galarian Berserker, he is hitting 140 if you have that set up. Zamazenta, you're a very good revenge attacker, Retaliate, being that if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, he does 120 more, so he does 220 or 240 with Berserker on the field. And we talked about Dialga when we were talking about the Metal Maker Metang. Dialga being the main reason why I like playing Metal Maker now is that with Chrono Burst, it's for 3, so 2 metal and 1 colorless. You may shuffle all energy attached to this Pokemon into the deck to have this attack do 80 more damage to 160 total, or 180 with Berserker. And the idea is that it gives you more, in my mind at least, it gives, instead of going into the drop zone, your energies are going back to the deck, so it makes it more easy for you to set up attackers later. That's kind of like the idea that I like this synergy. So like being a very good attacker for 160 with just having to shuffle the energy back, which is something you kind of want to do anyway, since you're going to be discarding energies a lot anyway. It's nice to draw back into them. So I like having this synergy in metal now. And then Cobalion, last card of the Pokemon. I'm on the fence about Cobalion. It takes a while for him to actually hit relevant numbers nowadays. It's the yellow bordered nerf. You could say that his Revenge Blast when your opponent has 5 prizes was it 180. That's 180 is his max damage. So he's not gonna be. You have to be kind of towards the late stages of the game. You have to somehow be even or ahead on the prize exchange for this to kind of even really matter. So it's like I don't know, maybe you call it a win more card, but I'd rather have other things set up. But that's it for Pokemon. All right, and now we have the supporters of the deck. Not a whole lot to explain about some of these supporters. We have the Lilies, obvious draw, Iono, obvious disruption. The only other peculiar part about this deck is I'm not playing a Marnie like I normally would, and I think you'll see that from the item cards later with me playing Reset Stamp. Probably the cooler card that I'm playing in this deck is Larry's Skill. The whole idea behind, I'll read Larry's Skill for those who actually don't know what it does. Discard a card from your hand, search your deck for a Pokemon, a supporter, and a basic energy, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So the idea of this card is to get Revavroom, get the energy for Revavroom, and maybe pick up a Clara or a different supporter to kind of proceed, to kind of keep moving your game progress. But the idea is to accelerate your board state. So getting the Revavroom right away, having the energy to discard, and then usually I like picking up Clara because I might have had to discard a Pokemon I didn't want to discard right away, or I was like trying to filter down with Meow, so I put the cards that I really wanted in the discard pile so that I can pick up with Clara the next turn. So it would be like the idea of me getting the evolution back for like an Archaludon and getting the energy so I can get the 2 energy so I can discard again with the Rumbling Engine and have the energy attachment for turn. There's a lot of synergy going on with here. Another card that I'm not currently playing that I probably would think about playing is Gladion, just to make sure that if Revavroom or an important piece is in the prizes, Larry's Skill at least get me the energy, the Gladion, and any of the Pokemon set of Pokemon that I need. So maybe it'll be the Varoom instead of the Revavroom. So the Varoom, get the energy for next turn, and the Gladion for next turn, so I can just Gladion for Revavroom for the energy discard, draw 6. Something I'm thinking about, but I like the idea of Larry's Skill a lot in this deck. Other than that, stadium searchers, you have some pretty powerful stadiums in metal. Cynthia and Caitlin, Guzmahala, just good 2 tag team cards to play. Brock Scouting instead of something like Hilda is I like the versatility of being able to go for basics or the evolution Pokemon to make sure I get kind of set up. And then 2 boss effects. Usually you might only play the Guzma, but I like having 2 for metal since I have a Draw Engine, Revavroom, Arvin for your tools and items, and then Raihan's obviously you're trying to come back from behind card. All right, now we're talking about my item cards. A lot of Pokemon Search. We got 7 different Pokemon Search cards, leaning heavily on keeping cards like Ultra Ball and Pokepad in the same list now, or the Quick Ball and the Ultra Ball, for being able to discard cards to get your hand size lower so that the Rumbling Engines hit a little bit harder. Not much needs to be said about that. I play a Super Rod in this version of the deck just because of the aggressive discards, making sure they can get your attackers back, and making sure the energies go back in the deck for Metal Makers. Metal Saucer being another one of those comeback cards. So since Archaludon's a 3 energy attacker, Zamazenta's a 3 energy attacker, having the Bronzong and the Metal Saucer and the attach get your 3 energy attackers going. Since I wasn't playing the Marty, I am playing the Reset Stamp. I like this just for the turns where if I Raihan for the energy I need, and then maybe I search for the Reset Stamp so I can play the Reset Stamp on that turn. Very annoying cards. Some of your typical item cards just being your Field Blower, Escape Rope versus Seeker, and then I play the Stretcher, Rescue Stretcher, Night Stretcher, and the Super Rod being the 3 versions of recovery for Pokemon. I do tend to discard a little bit heavier than I need to. There's maybe a thought to maybe try and switch out the Rescue Stretcher, maintain the Super Rod and the Night Stretcher, but I do like having access to being able to pick up the cards and discarding aggressively to just recoup your resources later. All right, to round out our trainer cards, we talk about our stadiums. First is Artisan. Typical Pokemon Search Metal doesn't have a specific stadium to search for cards. Parallel City being one of the most annoying stadium cards I think that kind of exists. I hate when someone parallels me, so obviously I'm going to play parallel on them so that It disrupts the board states pretty effectively. And then Mount Cornet. Mount Cornet is a card that I ridiculously don't include sometimes. Mount Cornet ends up being one of my favorite stadium cards. I like it more than I like the Jirachi, for example. I like the idea of being able to just recoup your energy resources constantly. With things like Rumbling Engine, you don't have to be shy about getting rid of them, but I also end up playing things like the Super Ratu to try and get energies back later in the game. But just Mount Cornet is very, very strong. Make sure you always have your energy attachments or energy discards for drawing. So this ends up becoming like a pseudo draw card as well, if you have the right setup. We play 2 retreat cards, easy. Self-explanatory. Maybe I changed the air balloon since I am playing the Metagross that gives the free retreat, which maybe I didn't highlight when I was going through it the first time, but the part of the appeal of the Metagross is that its ability is Levitate. I think it's called Levitate. It gives a free retreat to all your Pokemon. So maybe there's less need for the retreating options. And then Muscle Band to make sure that 120, 140, or 160 number becomes a little bit more appealing for your knockouts. Last up is energies. So for energies, we played just the 10 basic metal energies and 1 counter energy. The 1 counter energy just so you can make sure that it's easier attachments to include Zamazenta. So like normally you might think about playing a reversal energy to make it so it's easier attached for Archaludon or Metagross, or even one of your other attackers. I guess if you're desperate, Reverum, which, there are games where you actually will attack with Reverum. So, but the counter energy is just to have the diversity. I play the 1 Guzma. This is the only special energy in the deck. So there are considerations for maybe cutting this for the counter energy, the capture energy instead, or the new metal energy that's coming out with magnetic energy, which gives your metal Pokemon that it's attached to free retreat. All right, that's kind of the quick rundown of the Arch Nemesis metal deck. It is a very cool deck. I did like the old Archaludon, but the free retreat thing I wasn't getting a lot with, and having this kind of like conditional attack to stop your opponent's momentum is a pretty cool idea. Since we did lose the Archaludon with the free switch, we do still have it with Metagross, and this Metagross also has kind of a conditional thing where you would force your opponent to have to switch. One thing that's probably worth talking about is maybe a card that's noticeably missing from Metal, and that's with Jirachi. There's 2 different Jirachis. I think they call it the Amazing Jirachi, which is the top 2, pick one, put it in your hand, and the other one's like a top 5 search for a trainer, which is very good, but it does put you to sleep. And with metal decks, a lot of the times they always go after the skateboard that you would normally attach to your Jirachi, and Jirachi just ends up becoming like a bench slot burden. For the setup for metal, you typically want to prioritize setting up Reverum as fast as you can. I also like to set up your Metang line. You don't go into Metagross until mid to late game when you don't think you're going to need the Metal Maker anymore. But you probably want to set up these 2 guys first and then start seeing what attackers you can go live. You don't need to set up your Archaludon or Duraludon right away. The idea is maybe to have some game knowledge, try and figure out what evolutions your opponent plays, and try to go after them early with some of your attackers. You are playing the 2 boss effects and Iron Crown to be able to get in there. A good candidate for sending up 3rd would be like a Galarian Meowth, but you probably want to make sure that you get 1 to 2 attackers on the board with this combination, or two like one of these, and then always the Reverum. So that's probably also part of the consideration for wanting to play the Gladion in this deck with something like Hilary, to make sure that you're always getting your draw engine set up. But Metal's cool. I like Metal a lot. I think Metal has always had a ton of potential because of cards like Reverum being a very solid draw engine. Cards like Iron Crown make it a little bit more appealing as a energy efficient attacker. I've even gone so far as trying Iron Treads in the deck, which is, it's another future card, so it kind of helped justify playing like a card like a Future Energy Booster Capsule. I think that's what it's called. But it's a 60 attacker, moves the energy back. But when I had it with the Berserker, he was like an 80 attacker or a 100 damage attacker if I had the Muscle Band to kind of make sure that you had the 2 attached, moved an energy back. They would only get rid of the 1 energy if they managed to kill him. And that's what the deck I like to call my Future Metal Cats at the time. But Metal's got a lot of potential. Big bodies, 180s, 170, 130 on a basic, 130 on a basic with an ability that makes them take 30 less damage. 140 on a basic, silver border nerf, but 90 HP is still pretty good. Berserker, 70, can get in there, but you're probably not trying to get in there. And then rev rooms for energy costs like really steep for 90 or 180 if you get lucky. That's the metal Arch Nemesis metal deck. If you guys like deck profiles, let me like this, or quick deck profiles like this. Let me know if you have any specific requests. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps my videos and it helps the algorithm. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.